Yeah. Okay, you're looking good. Okay. And it looks like this is our time. And how's everyone doing today? This is the Concerned Forum. I'm your host, Robert Gums. And today I have uh, my friend, and from time to time he graces us with his appearance on the program, Mr. David Straham. And what can I say about this man, his accomplishments? Unfortunately, we don't have all afternoon because I think that's about how long it would take. Noted author, activist, educator, former Air Force officer, and it just goes on and on. I think he's going to wind up being a movie star also after this. But, he's a good guy. And what I want to talk about today, now, anyone who's ever, watched the show before and has had the opportunity to watch it when I had David on as a guest, knows that I consider this man my mentor. But we don't necessarily agree on everything. I say I'm with an agreement with him, I would say about 95%. But politically, we diverge, I would say, slightly, in that I'm a registered Democrat. I plan on running for political office this year as a registered Democrat, and I do believe that there's hope for the party. That being said, when we talk about the corruption of the system and
I don't belong to any party.
Right. He doesn't belong to any party. But when we talk about the corruption of the democratic system, we are in agreement with that. And right now, and I'm really, at home I write up stuff when I have the opportunity. I write up notes, and then just as quick as I write it up for the show, I tear it up, because I'm trying to get something across to folks, okay? And also, as you know, it's customary, I get on my soapbox for about the first 15 minutes of every show, because there's always some particular issue that I want to get across. And today, that issue is what we have going on now with Donald Trump. And I would say that this is what we used to call, what we call in the Navy, an all-hands evolution. Everyone that cares about this country should be concerned about this. Everyone that works, goes to school, dealing with the health care, whatever, you have to be concerned about this. Because basically we have a president, and what he's trying to do, he's trying to take over the government. Now, I had a feeling year before last, that if he ever got into the position where he would be president, that he would do everything he could to destroy our Constitution. And unfortunately, so far, I have a winning record in terms of calling out Donald Trump. I knew that he was going to get elected, or I should say selected, because once again, yes, he lost the popular vote. In spite of all that help that he had from the Russians, and I know that some of my friends in the Democratic Party might get angry at me for saying this, but all the help that he had from the Russians and from the bad campaign, the terrible campaign that Hillary Clinton ran. And that's why I was literally walking the streets of Philadelphia begging people just to show up to the polls. And this was the first time in my adult life that I've seen so many black people, especially black men and Latino men, decide not to go vote. And that's one of the reasons why. It was a convolution of factors, right? But the point is, he was able to manipulate the system in such a way, him and his friends, so that he was able to get in the White House. And from the first day that he's been in there, he has done nothing but basically tear down everything in terms of government that we have in this country. He's consistently attacked even our right as people of color and Americans. He has attacked our right to vote. He has attacked our intelligence services. And I take that personal because I spent several years being a member of one of those agencies. I was with DIA when I was in the Navy, in between my sea duty, which was for about a little over 5 years. And the problem is this. His problem is that he has been working with the Russians for so long. And then when it came time for him to campaign, people saw his campaign agents overseas in Europe meeting with Russian oligarchs. And you know what a Russian oligarch is? He is a guy that used to be KGB. And then when the wall fell down and they were dragged into 20th century capitalism, they literally took what they wanted. Factories, banks, you name it, they took it, right? And now these people are rich. It's like the country is run literally by a mafia almost. Trump got involved because of the fact that banks in America couldn't be trusted to do his business in an ethical manner. So that's how he got involved with the bank there in Cyprus and those banks in Russia. And that's where the potential for money laundering gets involved. I mean, there's a lot to it, but it's nothing that you want to see in an American president. Now, I brought David on today because one of the things, and perhaps the main thing, that's killing this country is this thing about race. I know, sex is up there, the economy, okay, but race, that seems to be the gorilla on America's back. You have a president that's a thug, okay? He cheats on his wife, which has nothing to do with his qualifications as president. But then he takes campaign money to pay the woman to be quiet. That's against the law. He's broken the law right there. This guy has so many cases hanging over his court cases hanging over his head. It's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, he could not even qualify at this point in his life to be in the military. He couldn't get a security clearance because of his string of bankruptcies and bad debts. He's a terrible businessman. The only thing he's good at is selling his name. And yet, in parts of this country, the white working class, especially white working class men, they literally threw themselves at this guy. The same guy that says he thinks that working class people are stupid. I mean, these are some of the things that he has said. A guy that never worked a day in his life, ran like hell to avoid going in the military doing NOM. And this is the kind of guy that they go for. White working class. The brothers and fathers of guys I served with in the 60s, in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. And I see race has a large part to play in that. Look what he said at Charlottesville. Oh, well, there's some great people in the Ku Klux Klan and in the American Nazi Party. And this is the American president? America, remember? John Wayne war movies, World War II, Nuremberg. And we have a president now that says, hey, some Nazis are cool. And yet, working class white males feel that somehow Trump is going to protect them from me. Or my friend Rodriguez, my next door neighbor. And this is madness. And we need to really analyze this. And I don't know, somehow we have to pull it together. Because if we don't, no one else is. Right? White folks, by the millions, are not going to go running back to Europe. I don't think African Americans and people from the Caribbean are going to run back to South America, or I should say, back to España. So what's it going to be? Somehow, we're going to have to face up to our problems and deal with it and conquer it. And David, that's the main reason why I invited you on the show today. You tell me what you think. Thank you
for your start.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to say is that if you want to be in control, if you want to maintain power in the United States, you have to know how to control the people.
Mm-hmm.
You have a very small number of people at the top of the totem pole, the American oligarchs,
Right.
the American ruling class, the professional class who supports them, and you have millions of other people also. The only way under a corporate capitalist system that we live in this country to maintain and increase your riches, and that's riches for the people at the top, is what they call divide and conquer. You have to break people up into smaller groups so you can control them. It might be a number of things, with men and women as gender, with the population of older people and younger people, that's playing the old against the young and the young against the old. But the major tool is what you call race. Now, race is an invention.
Right.
And they decided on this in this country back in the 17th century, 1600s.
Right.
And what was decided at that time, after Bacon's Rebellion in Virginia, that they would control people here by race. Before that, you were just a member of whatever nation you came from. And that's when they started to invite this category of white. And what they're doing now in this country is to play this on steroids. You have to divide people up to control them. The goal here, under this capitalist system, this corporate capitalist system we have, is to do one thing only, and that is to make profit for yourself, more and more profit. The only way you can do it is to play the groups of people against each other, whether it's the things I just mentioned, or ethnicity, or any other thing where you can look at people and divide them up into small groups, South versus the North, one state against the other, And they do that all around. For example, in the country, they have 50 states.
Right.
They play the states against each other. And the capitalist class will go to one state and say, what kind of deal will you offer me? Oh, well, the other state will offer a better deal. You have a situation where most of the ruling class is in a welfare program. Now, why do I say that? No one ever talks about a welfare program, but they are on welfare in every state of the country. Now, how do I say that? They're getting subsidies, they're getting tax avoidance plans, they're getting all kinds of infrastructure development for their factories and things. They're getting training for workers. These are all welfare for capitalists. And that's going on all over the country. Do you hear anyone talk about that? No. So this is all a matter of divide and conquer, break up people up into small groups, and race is the key one. And when I say race, I'm talking about people who have different phenotypes. Phenotype has to do with the way you look, whether you have brown skin or black skin or pink skin or whatever. And they find that this is the best way to work here. It doesn't work everywhere. Capitalism is not the same in Switzerland or Norway or Denmark or Finland.
Right.
It's different. And they can't get away with the same thing that is going on in this country. They have to give up some social benefit for the people, and people have a better quality of life, more enjoyment in their life in those countries. But here, you got the advantage of being the capital of white supremacy race, that's the name of it, and here it works very well. And so basically, people don't function in their own interests. Now, Bob asked me about why do white men go and vote against their interests. I'm going to talk about that. And what I'm saying, what I would like to say, is that people don't always have the ability to be analyzing the situation they're in. Right. They don't understand it. So they don't know how to analyze the system, the capitalist system they live in this country. And that makes them make all kind of dumb mistakes, no matter what category you're in, based on race or whatever. And the oligarchs, the people that own the country, the people at the very top are laughing as they go to the bank because they are very good at playing people against each other.
You know what? That's why I guess folks at home caught me because a couple of things you've said, oh man, you blew my mind. Because it's so, what you said was so right on point. And I'm not sitting there just trying to blow smoke through your ears. This tax bill that the Republicans and Trump forced through the Congress, right? The biggest criticism, and it's a true criticism, this is basically to benefit corporations.
Absolutely.
But you know what they're doing? The blue states, like California, New York, Maryland, well, hell, you know this, you're a property owner. Here in New York, you always could do deductions because of the high tax bracket that we, structure that we have here in this state. They are punishing the big blue states because we have more people and because we try to provide more for our people. So they got the tax thing fixed now so that New York is being punished, whereas South Carolina, Bama, Arkansas, places like that, they're not. They are Texas. They're not. They are what you just said, playing states against each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Trump and the Republican Party are doing. And this other thing that you said, okay, another part of the tax bill in West Virginia, clean coal is bull, all right? We know that.
It's ridiculous.
Exactly. But he pushes that because you got, a lot of white men in West Virginia and Kentucky.
Who mine coal.
Yeah.
Right.
These poor guys, they're suffering with that black lung disease, right? And
it's killing them.
Yeah. And Trump and his buddies, they keep trying to beat down Obamacare. One thing Obamacare did do, it had a thing in there for the guys and their families to help them with the black lung disease.
Yes.
But because, how did Trump like to put it, the so-called black kid from Kenya, that BS that he's always talking about, this was something that was helping those guys. Trump comes along, takes it away. I believe that provision is now gone. Obamacare is just hanging in there by a thread. So I believe, like I say, that black lung provision, that's gone. But these idiots, let me stop doing that. Okay, because I'm not trying to disrespect anyone, but I'm trying to make a point. These poor guys, I don't like what they're doing with Trump, and saying he was, hanging out with the Russians. He's still my man. How can he be your man when the thing that was keeping you alive and helping your family so that when you do finally kick off and drop dead from black lung, at least your family will have enough to bury you and be able to take care of themselves? And him and his Republicans kept at it until they got it taken away. How the hell can he be your man? I don't understand that.
Let me add something here. I think it's important at this point that your narrative, I think, is quite accurate.
Okay. Well.
People have to understand. I think one of the most important things that's not mentioned is that capitalism, corporate capitalism like we have here, doesn't care anything about creating jobs and giving people jobs. Their interest is only in making profit.
Creating wealth, exactly,
creating wealth for themselves, not jobs. So when they run around talking about how they're going to create this job and that job, it doesn't mean anything, because if you're running a capitalist enterprise like we have here, you're not about creating jobs, you're about making profit. And that means whatever you can do to make that profit, whether it's running offshore, closing down factories, keeping the wages low, putting in robots, whatever you can do to destroy the ability of people to take away from your profit. If they could do things that they're doing and make a profit without hiring anybody, that's what they would do.
I got another one for you. Now, see, this is the problem, and I will say this, as a Democrat, and I know you are nonpartisan, but see, my problem as a Democrat is that we have to show where the issue is economic. We have to show working class people that, hey, not only are we on your side, not only are you one of us, but we also know what the hell we're talking about. Now, this, again, with this tax thing, this new tax crap that they put out there. Check this out. Hold on a second now.
Yes.
We're fighting now if you own a restaurant, I own a restaurant, right? Now, you know that people that work in the restaurant trade, they don't get a damn thing. What is their average, like $2 an hour? And they live off their tips. So what do? They say, well, we'll pay the restaurant workers, give a minimum wage, and the restaurant will be able to take away their tips. Now, how heartless can you be? And how dumb, I'm sorry I did it again, forgive me, how nearsighted are you that you're going to keep supporting the guys that are hurting you? And when you question them about it, if you think to question them about it, they're going to misdirect your attention to, look at those Mexicans coming over the wall. Mexicans are not coming over the wall. You got more people getting out of the country going through the wall, going back, than coming in. But they want to get you so excited. Oh, the culture has changed. Like this doofus, I will say about this, he's a doofus. Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas, you are a doofus, okay? He's always talking about immigration. And he's not talking about just illegal immigration, he's talking about all immigration involving people of color, because we don't want to change the American culture. What culture? The culture you got from the black slaves that you brought into the United States? The culture that you took from the Spanish-speaking Mexican vaqueros in the Southwest, who were the first cowboys? It's you know, sometimes I look at all this and I say, you know, this is insanity. People need to speak up. People who hold public office, they have a responsibility and an obligation to teach their constituents, to show their constituents, look, these are the facts. This is what happened in the country, okay? American culture is a combination of the world. It's not, you know, something, well, I'm an American, so boom, I have a unique culture. Yes, you do, but that culture is a culture that has been produced by an amalgamation of people from around the world. And that is what makes America unique. Now, I have quite a few disagreements with Barack Obama on policy. But one thing he definitely got right, what makes America unique is the fact that we are all here. That is the glory of America. Not this, I don't know what, it's Christian, because we are a Christian nation. No, George Washington told you that is not the case. George Washington told you in a letter to his Jewish friend, America is not a Christian nation. It is a nation where any man can sit underneath his fig tree and worship his God as he chooses or chooses not to. Not my words, that's George Washington. But this crap that Senator Cotton, and those other idiots like that guy King from Iowa, when they talk about a special white Anglo culture, that's a bunch of garbage. It's not true. It's historically a lie. But you use that for your Nazi and Ku Klux Klan friends to try and say America is a white Christian man's country. And that's not true. That's wrong. I'm sorry, bro. I get a little angry.
I think that we ought to get to a point that is very important and most people don't understand. The people that are sitting in the legislatures at all levels,
Right.
whether you're talking about state or national, and I'd say local.
Uh-huh.
Most of them do not work in your benefits. They do not work for you, the people. They work for those people who give them those campaign contributions.
The donor class.
Which are,
you're talking about.
that's right.
Yeah.
We're talking about what really are bribes, and those people pay these people, and they work for them. They don't work for the interests of the regular people who live here. They work for the interests of the corporations and the people at the very top, the oligarchs. And most people don't get that. So when you talk about these various, let's say, senators, and you think about what they want, and when you talk about what they want the same thing that the corporations want. Now, let me say this. You have in this country, if they, let's say the Democratic Party claims that is, sometimes claims that is for the working man and all that sort of thing, and if for this, that, and the other. But if they were really for the working people, by this time, they would have reversed the TaftHartley law. The TaftHartley law was put through in the Truman administration, and the Democrats have been in power a number of years. Do you hear them talking about reversing that? All the TaftHartley law does is giving you, they call it the right to work law, but it's not that. It's the right to work for less law. And most of the states, at least 26 states, have a right to work law. So when you have a right to work law, you're destroying unions, because people don't have a union shop and they don't have to join the union. And if you don't have that, you weaken the union, and that puts more money in the hands of the ruling class and the corporate controllers of that class.
Well, you know what? I agree with you. And just like I said, I will be running as a Democrat. And I make this promise. When I run for public office, I will run, and part of my platform will be to abolish the Taft-Hartley Act. That's what it's called. That's the I think the technical way that you call it, the Taft-Hartley Act. I will fight to abolish that, and I will fight to get unions back on the level that they were in back in the 60s and early 70s. When my dad, who was a Republican, he was the district leader in Harlem, on the western Harlem, for the Republican Party, and he was also the union shop steward, Local 452, Candy Workers and Confectionery Workers Union. He was also the shop steward in the factory where he worked in. And he went through hell because my dad was one of those guys that he felt the first blows of the corporations and the wealthy slamming the unions. When they first started that crap, that would be back in the, when was I in high school? 69, 70, 71. All right? That is when they started saying, well, hey, we need to organize to fight back against the majority of the people, to fight back against the majority of the voters. And that's when all these businessmen and corporations and wealthy people, that's when they began bit by bit to start beating down on the unions. And my old man was the first one to feel that heat. And they would do things like, okay, you have a position, you have one position here, but because you're an activist with the union, we're going to show you who's calling the shots here. And they took my old man out of the place where he worked at, the position he was in, and they had him running messages. In other words, making hand deliveries. And this guy was a shop steward for the union. And that union and the people that took over the factory, oh man, I could remember my old man coming home and telling us the hell that the bosses were putting the workers through. But I say one thing for my old man, we didn't agree on a lot of things, but I tip my hat to him because he had guts in those days. He stood his ground. And I saw this thing, okay, from a young age. And fortunately, he was able to get a job with the city through politics because, like I said, he was a big wheel in Harlem for the Republican Party. And he was able to move into a city job. And 'cause I remember first time I went in the service, and I came home on leave one time. And he had me going all around, down around the construction site that became the World Trade Center. And he had a job with the city as like a peer inspector. And he used to find, when they used to make a hit, gangsters used to make a hit, and you got somebody floating in the river. And my old man found a bunch of bodies in his time there. But that's what his friends had to help him do to get him out of that situation because they were fighting the unions.
Well, I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because it shows you that the ruling class that runs the country, the people don't run the country, it's the ruling class that runs it. What they would do if they see there's enough unrest going, what they do is throw bones to people.
Yeah.
And that's what they did during the Great Depression. They threw some bones like Social Security and whatnot. And then the Second World came up in about 1939 to 1945. And when that was over, the goal was to reverse any kind of social benefit that existed or was given before. And that's what's going now. And by the 70s, which you mentioned, the 70s, they were in full reversal mode.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on to this day. They have successfully done that, reversing a lot of the benefits that people have. And next thing you know, they're going to be coming for your Social Security, and they're going to be coming for your Medicare.
Yeah,
and
no,
any other thing they
I
can
dig
come
what you're
to.
saying. I agree with you 100%. But what upsets me, and this is what really burns me up, they're going to, as you say, they came for my old man and all the other union guys, right? But, and this is where the Republicans, they deserve a trophy for this because they really pulled one over on the American people. They took the fight of the corporations against the unions and against our social welfare system. They took that fight and changed it from a fight for working people to have dignity in their lives, and they changed it into a racial fight, saying, oh, well, all these programs, and then showing the picture of the welfare queen. Remember that one?
Yeah, well, see, that's part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Whereas I just mentioned before, the real welfare kings and queens are the rich people.
Exactly.
They're the ones, but you got to divert attention away from yourself to some disadvantage or person that can be your scapegoat. and like black people, Latino people, immigrants, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you never will hear or see anything on radio or television them talking about all the welfare programs for the corporations. And as I said, every state has welfare for the corporations. That's what those programs are. Tax avoid. In the city, they have the, I think the 421 for the real estate people.
Right.
And they have all kinds of, in every state. You can look it up on your computer. They have, there's one site I can tell you, go to Good Jobs First. That's a site that has all the information about every state, and they'll tell you the welfare program that they have for corporations in that state.
Yeah.
But no one talks about this, and especially as a program that is a welfare program for rich people, and that's exactly what it is. And when you think about it, they have other ways of beating down poor people. What they do with this neoliberal situation, what they do is increase fees for things, increase fees for parking tickets, increase fees for everything that would affect poor people. And also, all over the country, they're adding gambling casinos, because gambling casinos can bring in some tax money, and most of the people that go there are poor folks. So you can collect money from poor folks in gambling casinos and not charge rich people the tax that they should pay.
Yeah, but see, once again, this whole business about labeling people, especially people of color, as welfare queens, or what's the other one? Healthy young bucks going to the supermarket.
Well, that suits in with the racist
stamps.
Language.
Now, this whole business about what Trump said about shithole countries, that really, I exploded on that one. My dad was from the Caribbean, Dominican Republic and St. Thomas Virgin Islands. My mom was from Virginia, and she has Native American in her. My dad was also Spanish speaking. His father was Spanish speaking. He was born in St. Thomas, raised in the DR. They had to go back to St. Thomas to learn English. So Trump basically, he's got me, like I was saying earlier, he got me coming and going. I spent several years in the intelligence community when I was in the Navy, and he hates the intelligence community. He hates the FBI. Number one, when he wants to accuse or say things like, oh, well, you had about over 3 million immigrants of color that were illegal, and they snuck and voted in the election, and that's why I didn't win the popular vote. Well, it's the FBI that investigates charges like that and said, no, Mr. President, that's not true. Nobody stole in the election from you. And that's why he hates the civilian and military intelligence agencies. And see, that's why I say this guy is worse. He's as bad as a venereal disease in the White House. And I just want my fellow white working class, especially working class men, all right, to really sit down and to really start thinking what's best in your long-term interest. Because you're talking not just about you, you're talking about your sons, your grandsons, and your daughters, your granddaughters. And to me, it's obvious that Trump, he is not in line with what we want to see happen in this country. Now, there are some of you out there that unfortunately the whole race thing got to you and it's stuck in you so hard. We're not going to waste time trying to convince you to do the right thing. But there are many of you, others of you out there who do have the capacity for critical thinking. Start to think about what people are saying to you. All right? I walk around with a slight limp because of the service that I performed for my country in the military. I'm no hero, but I had a job to do and I did it. Donald Trump was a rich kid. His old man was able to get him 5 different doctors, or the same doctor but paid him 5 different times because he had a little ookie on his foot, okay? You know how many guys in Nam didn't come back? Had feet way worse than Donald Trump. So that was a bunch of crap. But think about the person that we're talking about here. We have it. We have him on obstruction of justice. It's there. We know this guy has been in bed with Putin and the Russian oligarchs. And yet he's going to lecture you and me about patriotism? This guy has practically sold his country out. But what he does, he keeps playing that race thing with your heads. Oh, well, the Democrats, they care too much about black women and black teenagers and white women with college degrees. All this bunch of nonsense. Listen, you know what people in Norway have been doing? Ever since he made that crack, the folks in Norway have been sending him letters asking him, you talk about you would rather have people from Norway as opposed to Central America or from Haiti or from Africa? And they're saying, why would we want to come to your country? You don't have any decent health care. You have to pay an arm and a leg for an aspirin. Why would we want to come there? We can go to university without having to go in debt for the rest of our lives. Only people that we lock up are people who are non-violent, who are violent, and we manage to care for them as well. You have the highest percentage of citizens locked up, incarcerated out of any industrialized country on the planet. Why would we wish to live in the United States? That made me, as a human being, that touched me. That brought to me a feeling of relief to know that the rest of the world, especially the industrialized world, they don't have this madness that we have here in the United States. I understand they have some problems with terrorism. Oh, and I wonder how that started. I wonder what brought all those people out of Iraq and Syria running up into Europe and some of those African countries. What economic pressures and military pressures that we put on those countries that cause the refugee problem, like in Germany. Wonder who's responsible for that? Folks, just start thinking. That's all I'm really trying to get across. What else can you tell them, David?
Well, there's so many points there that I don't know where to start. You're talking about the refugee problem in Europe. All that emanates
we caused it
from American foreign policy. Everything has a blowback.
Yeah.
You do certain things in certain places, and you think, you're going to solve this by attacking, for example, Libya and murdering Colonel Gaddafi and stealing all of Libya's money.
Oh, that was such a mistake. That was
billions of dollars of gold that Libya has, and you just go steal that, and you think there's no blowback, and you don't even recognize that by doing that, you affect a lot of other countries. You go into Syria, you have some agent provocateurs working for you in Syria, and you cause a insurgency there, and that's a blowback. And what happens with all those people that are killed, and the survivors try to escape, and that goes all over.
Yeah.
When you do something one place, it comes back to you in other places.
Well,
so that's what's happening in Europe.
What you just said, and I'm going to speak on this because I know that this is a very important point with you. This thing in Libya, I'm not going to go in a long diatribe about that. Suffice it to say, I did TS, as they say, top secret work, on the Middle Eastern desk, and for a while. So I'll be careful with what I say. But I will put this to you as a former military person and as someone that was actively involved in the world situation. The attack on Libya, and I know I supported her when she ran for president after what happened to Bernie Sanders happened to him. I have my problems with that also, but I saw it as a choice between Trump and her. And to me, the only logical move was for Hillary. However, that was one of the big mistakes that we made as a country. And I know that that was really her ball, that whole Libya thing. And as a former military person, as I'll say again, that was a horrendous mistake. The reason being, Gaddafi had decided that he wasn't going to deal with any so-called weapons of mass destruction. He put it out for the world to see. Look, I'm not there. I'm not with that. Okay? He was providing information, valuable information, in terms of, hey, this is somebody's going to blow up your drugstore if you're not careful. He was doing that, right? He was coming on our side of the fence.
They've double-crossed him.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. They kind of stabbed him in the back, and it wasn't necessary. It was not called for. Now, because of that, what's happened is you have practically given ISIS an open, warm water seaport. Okay? I know Libya. I know the coast of Libya. I've been by it often enough. I've been scared to death going by it often enough because from the Ronald Reagan days when Gaddafi, it seemed like he had a thing against the USS Nimitz. Right? I guess that's because he felt that we were trying to bump him off, so he was trying to bump us off. So I think I know a little of what I speak. And what you have done by smashing Gaddafi's government, you have basically turned right off the gut, like Benghazi, all right? You've turned it into the Wild West because you have created a horrible vacuum. No, I would not choose that for a vacation spot. And that was a very bad move on Hillary's part. And that's what happens sometimes when you go butting around in places without thinking. And
Amen.
That, and
Amen.
now, thank you.
Off the coast of Libya, when Colonel Gaddafi was in power, they didn't have any people going off in ships trying to get to Europe. He wouldn't allow it.
He kept order.
That's right. He kept the order.
Yeah.
Now there are thousands of African people being killed off the coast of Libya, drowning at sea because they are being exploited and enslaved.
Yeah.
And people need to know that at the time when the United States and NATO attacked Libya, Libya was the most successful country economically in all of Africa
on the African continent.
'54.
Yes.
And that's why would you attack a successful country that wasn't attacking you? And that's what, I guess, led by Hillary Clinton, that's what they decided to do. And look what has come about since that time, and all those other African countries like Nigeria and whatnot, as a result of attacking Colonel Gaddafi.
Well, I have heard, okay, now I'm not going to try and qualify this. I have heard before any of this business about revolt against Colonel Gaddafi was even on the horizon, I did hear that Gaddafi was working on some type of golden dinar currency.
That's correct.
To basically found a currency for the entire African continent.
That's right,
that would not be based upon the petrodollar.
Right. That's Hillary Clinton's death warrant for Colonel Gaddafi.
Now, I could see why, for example, the Saudi Arabians would have problems with that.
That's right.
See?
That's why they never liked Colonel Gaddafi.
Yeah, and I could see why they would be inclined to push a Western power to take Gaddafi down.
That's what they did.
See? Now, like I say, this is what I heard. I'm not gonna qualify this.
I'm sure they were right in cahoots with Hillary Clinton and Obama.
Well, just because we helped them with fighter aircraft.
They didn't come out against the attack.
No. As a matter of fact, they were kind of helped. They were helped by Western powers. Put it that way, in the strife against Gaddafi. Because, like I say, if I'm going to qualify something, I'm going to say, I'm saying this because I know or because I was there. This thing with Gaddafi, I heard as to why they felt, they being Hillary and certain people in the Western hierarchy, felt that it was so important. But I think everything will come clear with the passage of time. And as we speak of the passage of time, what's happening is what I hate about this show, when I have a guest like David on, the sands of time flow like through the hourglass. But I think you folks got the basic idea of what it is that we're trying to say. And I can promise you that I will follow up on this subject in the shows that will be coming up in the future. And I will also keep you informed as to when we do a demonstration at Fox Network against racism and against our president that seems to be more comfortable dealing with Russia than dealing with the laws of his own country. So, my friends, please enjoy your weekend, the rest of your weekend. And thank you for inviting me into your home. And David, thank you for once again being my guest on this show. And it's the Concerned Forum, and we'll see you same time, same place, next Saturday. Thank you, and may the Creator hold you in His hands and bless you. Bye now.
Oh boy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We covered a lot of ground, you know.
Yeah, and you covered it quite well. I think it was wonderful because that, I will tell you straight up, that is how I'm going to carry this fight forward. Because I don't think that Black history, okay, I think that that's great. Black American history, African, I think that's wonderful, and everyone should know that, okay? But that part of Malcolm, I don't think that we can transpose that to this time. A lot of the other things that he spoke on, we can definitely carry it on.
Mm-hmm.
But what he had to say, what King had to say, what a few other people had to say, what Bobby Kennedy had to say, that is the course that I'm going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
Because either we're going to get this thing solved, or we're just going to turn this whole continent into a big bloodbath.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be no, it has to be that way. Now you got this guy Spencer and a few other groups. They're talking about they want to have a white man's country right here in the United States, and that's not going to happen. We can never let that happen. See, so that's why I say either we're going to learn how to live together, or we are just going to constantly blow each other up. And I would much rather live together, see, and in peace with my fellow citizens. But we're going to have to stand up, and we're going to have to face certain facts. Number one, in the 21st century, there is no reason, and see, now this is what bugs me as a Democrat. We have thousands upon thousands of people that live in the projects. You know, they have no heat or hot water. And instead of de Blasio just saying, well, you know, screw it, it's an emergency, we got to get this shit done by the end of next week. No, he's talking about, well, yeah, we should be able to get new, boilers or whatever, sometime in July and August. The folks are freezing now. They're stinking now, unless they go to their friends or relatives' homes to take a shower. And I know how it is. I've been homeless. And I know how bad that can be. And what's worse, if you in your home and you paying rent for that in them damn projects, and you gotta go to bed dressed like this because it's too cold, because you have no heat, and this is a Democratic administration. You know, remember Democrats, FDR, the New Deal, Happy Days, all hearing it. We don't have our folks sitting around with all their clothes on because it's so cold. Woman said it was colder being in the apartment than being outdoors. What the hell's going on with that? Shit.
Okay.
You got a lot of work to do. That really pisses me off. Because I personally put that guy in the mayor's seat. Me. All the damn phone calls I did for him? Shit. And what's the first thing he was worrying about? The damn horses. Remember the horses and buggies and their disposition? Don't get me wrong, because I do believe that how a society treats its animals is also a way to judge what kind of society it is. But you also have to prioritize. And remember, I work in the shelter. I'm a supervisor at a homeless shelter, see? And it's not right. Now, it's a little bit, it's cleaner than when me and my son was in the shelter. While Kelly was, you know, in the hospital before she died. The shelter it's cleaner, but they got, you know, if you in the shelter, right? Like, if you in the shelter, for example, suppose something happened, God forbid, and you and Monica wound up in the shelter here in the city. Do you know that even if I'm your son, I couldn't come over for Sunday and have dinner? You can't have visitors. I said, what kind of shit is that? I said, well, Robert, that's the rules. I said, well, that's wrong, man. Well, I said, look, I'm working here. I'm not going to, you know, other ways to deal with that. But see, that's the type of shit that we do to people, you know. And see, the more I think about the stuff that you be saying, you know, you're right. the way that we do, they have capitalism in Norway.
Yes.
They got fat people in Norway.
Yeah, but their capitalism is not based on white supremacy like we have here.
Yeah.
So they can't use that to defeat the people, and so the people have much more social benefits.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they don't have prejudiced people over there, but
although they be hard to find, be honest about it.
Yeah, compared to here.
Oh yeah.
And so they have their capitalists on a short leash.
Yeah.
In check, in check.
That's what you're right.
You know, so they have all kind of social benefits we could just dream about.
Yeah.
Dream about.
And you know something?
Mm-hmm.
Because Republicans, and it's not that I'm trying to constantly keep playing partisan,
Mm-hmm.
but Republicans are quick to resent you saying that. Okay? You go to any kind of meeting, any kind of political meeting, and someone like you says that, right?
I don't think I told any lie.
No, you but you know what they will do? They will kind of, for a long time, they won't say nothing. They'll look at you.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the deer in the headlights stare. See?
They're not used to hearing me talk like that.
Yeah,
I know.
they won't know what to say at first. And then you know what they're going to do? They're going to try and come up with some old bullshit. Well, you know, they had World War II, and so they were bombed to smithereens, so they just had to start from scratch. We don't have to do that here in the United States, which is bullshit. So that's the same thing Obama tried to pull that shit, and he got shot down. He stopped saying it. Because he realized, he's an intelligent man, he realized how stupid it sounded. 75% people telling you they want something with a big public option, and you want to talk about, well, in Europe they had World War II. Okay, so what?
That's nonsense.
Yeah.
You could do it if you wanted to.
Yeah. But
you got it.
He didn't, you know, he would say that because of the donors, the donor class.
Oh, you got that 100% right.
And see, that's the same bullshit. Because now Nancy Pelosi, she's always getting attacked with that. Because she started out talking about the public option. But then she ran away from it.
See, but that's what the people want. So that's why I mentioned that these people in office, they don't work for the people that vote for them. They work for the ruling class.
That's correct. Hang on a second, let me get the disc.